Okay, 8th graders, we're going to be starting our new writing unit on position papers, which really is just a type of an argument paper. You're going to be taking a position on a topic, researching it, and arguing your side. Before you continue with the presentation, if you have not yet read the article Hijinks Shootout, please stop this right now and go and read it. It's attached to Google Classroom. All right, now that you've taken a minute to read that article, let's get going here. So often, nonfiction authors take up moral dilemmas. A nonfiction text that at first seems lighthearted can actually be tackling a serious issue. I'm thinking about the paper that you just read, Hijinks Shootout. As a piece of journalism, I would say it's entertaining. It tells a good story, it has good voice, but it also reveals some real moral dilemmas raised when kids play games that simulate violence. These role-playing games, like Killer, can be really controversial and have a lot of sides to them, right? Arguments about them. You can argue your points about important issues raised by nonfiction texts, and that's what we're going to be focusing on with our writing starting today. So we're going to reread that text in a little bit, and then we're going to actually read it with a lens of how it suggests two different sides of an ethical debate. So before we get any further into our first bend of this unit, I want to make sure you have everything you need. You'll need your writer's notebook, or if you would like to do this all through Google Docs, I'd like you to create a folder on Google Drive that's just designated for all work from this unit. You're also going to need to join my Flipgrid topic in order to be able to do an activity in this lesson. That is linked on Google Classroom, so please go and do that if you need to do that right now. The other thing that you're going to need to do is locate the slide doc for the online discussion that I'm going to have you have with your classmates, and find yours and open it up. And then also, please make sure that you've read the article Hijinks Shootout. We're going to be using it throughout this bend, and we're going to be using it today. And if you're writing by hand, please make sure that you have a writing tool. Okay, so go ahead and get all those things together right now. All right, so today what we're really going to be talking about is how the texts that writers read often suggest debatable issues or ethical dilemmas that are hard to figure out. There's not necessarily a clear right and a clear wrong. They're not black and white. And those are the issues that are worth talking and writing about arguing about developing a position on. And so writers write about these issues to clarify what their own stance is. And oftentimes one of the ways that they do that is they decide to argue one side and then another of these same dilemmas using all of their argument skills in order to really kind of explore that debatable issue as thoroughly as they can. And that's what we're going to be practicing today. So we're going to do something unusual today in that you're going to be arguing two positions about this article, and you're going to do that through that Google Slide document that I linked for you on Google Classroom. So find the one that you are assigned last names A through M. You have one document, you're group 1, and then N through Z, you are group 2. So please use that. But first, I want you to gather some information. So I'm going to be rereading Hijinks Shootout to you, kind of the first section, and your goal is to be taking some notes while I do that so that you're able to gather some thinking around each of these positions. You're going to pick one position to start with by thinking about, and then after you listen to the reading one time, then you're going to think about it with the second position in mind. So take a minute and think about the type of notes you want to take, how you want to organize your thinking. Do you want a T-chart? You know how much I love them. Would you like to do a web? Is there some other way that you're going to organize your notes? You really need to have one set of information for position 1 and one set of information for position 2. So take a second and decide how you're going to organize your notes. Okay, and then the other thing that I want to mention is that the tricky thing with this is that the article isn't explicitly about this debate, right? The article isn't saying whether or not they think teens should be allowed to play violent role games or not, or presenting different sides to that argument. It's not directly about that. So what your goal is to be listening and really reading this interesting story about this game and about this experience for these high school students, and think about what elements of that argument could be used to support each of these positions. You know, it doesn't come right out and say these games are bad for kids, or this proves that all kids should play these games. It kind of gives you information that you can pull out to support either of these positions, and that's what your job is. You have to do that thinking work. You have to read really closely, listen really closely, and think about what are the details in this text that support position 1, and what are details in this text that could be used to support position 2. And after you've done that note-taking for both positions, then you're going to pause this video and go to Google Docs and find that slide and type in some of your arguments for each of your positions, some of the findings that you made. So, Hijinks Shootout by Guy Martin. This was in The New Yorker in June 2009. Inside the world of a killer high school assassination game. Killer, the last man standing game of water pistol ambush, has become a key end-of-the-year ritual in several New York City high schools. At St. Anne's, a private school in Brooklyn Heights, the game lasts 2.5 weeks and is especially ferocious. Over the years, students there have developed a 17-point rule book, a map of the safe zones around the school, an entry fee, currently $20 per team, it goes into the winner's pot, and a non-playing senior class judge to arbitrate disputed kills and rule violations. The judge also makes a pie chart of death, the order of killing assignments, which he or she then distributes to squads shortly before opening day. "I'm looking for some good massacres early," this year's judge said as the competition began the second week in May. Summoning what his classmates referred to as his inner lawyer, he asked that his name not be used. "I've arranged at least one boyfriend-girlfriend kill that could be interesting." Initially, each team of up to 4 students is given only the identities of its immediate prey. All other players are anonymous, so that in the days leading up to the game, the school becomes a souk of intelligence gathering and disinformation. In 2007, Jake Protel, a freshman, distinguished himself by ferreting out the itinerary of a field trip that 2 targets were taking to Tel Aviv. Protel took a car to Newark Airport, found the victims before they passed through security, and dispatched them using 2 bathtub squirtfish. "I had to get special permission from the judge for the squirtfish because I didn't want to take my gun anywhere near an LL counter," Protel, now a junior, recalled as he paced Pierpont Street, 3 water guns shoved inside the pocket of a hoodie. Okay, so I'm going to pause there for a minute, and I want you to write a few things down. What are some details that you could use to support whatever position you decided to take up first? Whether it was if teens should be allowed to play violent role-playing games, or whether you were taking notes on if you thought teens should not be allowed to play violent role-playing games. Okay, so now that you've taken your notes, I want you to go back to Google Classroom and link to the same assignment as this document. So find yours, Group 1 or Group 2, based on your last name, A through M Group 1, N through Z Group 2. Simple rules: you're going to pick one row, you're going to choose a unique color or color combination, put your name in the column farthest to the left, and then list as many ideas, evidence, support as you can to argue the first position that you thought about. Try to come up with at least 4 things to put in there, and then you're going to go back, you're going to think about the article again, you're going to reread, you can listen to me read it again, and then you're going to do the same thing for the second position. So everybody is going to have ideas, evidence, arguments, support for each of the arguments in the document. All right, now that you guys have listened to that part of the article again, you took some notes, you then went on Google Docs and you found your document and jotted some of your notes in there, went back, found your second position and did the same thing. If you haven't done the same process for the other position, please stop and go and do that now. You can reread, you can listen to me reading it again, take notes on that second position now, and go right back to that doc if you haven't already done so. If you have gone to that document and written down some evidence that could support both sides of the argument, I want you to think about, what is your best argument? One thing that's really important is that we're not just looking at one specific part of the text, but we're looking across the whole text. So maybe think about, I only read about half of it. What other information comes later that can connect to some of the ideas that were starting to emerge in that beginning half? I talked about the kind of callous attitude or making jokes about a word like massacre. Does that same sort of attitude come through in that second half of the text, for example? If you can find arguments that go across the text, that is a really, really strong argument, and those are the ones that you want to go for. So once you've kind of identified what you would say is your best argument for each position, so one argument for each position. So for me, it might be, one of mine about how they are, how they should not be encouraged, how teens should not be allowed to play violent role-playing games, would be that, this attitude is almost too casual around this idea of killing that comes out through these games. And a piece of evidence I have for that is that the words that the judge used when he said, I'm looking for some really great massacres this year. That, to me, is some good evidence for that argument. So that would be my argument for why they should not play those games. Now I need to think about what might be my argument and what's one piece of evidence for why they should. Once I have both of those identified, then you're going to go back to Google Docs, go to Flipgrid. You already should have signed up for it. I asked you to do that at the beginning. There was that little link. You just followed that, enter in your school address, and you're going to video record for us your best argument for each position with evidence. I look forward to hearing them. Thanks, 8th grade. Talk to you soon.